By the end of my active addiction to alcohol, I drank because I drank. The only real reason that I was drinking is because it was habitual, and when I quit drinking, I felt absolutely miserable. Come to find out, that absolutely miserable feeling was withdrawals, which I did not learn until much, much later, and I'm very lucky that it didn't turn out worse than it did. But that feeling of sickness and the habit of drinking was a big chunk of the reason that I drank. I also drank to avoid a lot of things. I didn't know how to feel my feelings. I didn't know how to deal with stress. I had no capacity to do any of those things. And so anytime I ran into something, I would just drink. But the reality is, I drank because I drank. I woke up in the morning, I drank what was left over, I waited for the store to open, I went to the store, got my daily allotment, came home, did the same thing. That was just my life, and I honestly didn't question it. The idea that I could somehow live in a different way seemed so incredibly foreign to me because I had been living this way for so long. The thing is that the beginning of when I started drinking was not this way. Right? I started drinking because I had a narrative in my head that I was this shy little boy who wouldn't fit in anywhere, which wasn't entirely true. And when I say it was a narrative that I have in my head, I really believe that. I don't believe that I was that shy little boy, but it was the story that I was telling myself. So the beginning, when I was 19 years old, I found alcohol and it allowed me to feel outgoing, even though I really was. It allowed me to feel excited. It allowed me to feel a lot of things that I didn't feel like I was feeling in my real life. But when I think back at that, I don't know that those things were true. This is a really important part of my recovery right now, is starting to separate the things that I believe versus the things that are true, the thoughts that I have versus the reality. And I'm going back and reflecting on a lot of the things that have happened in my life over the last 20 years, the last 30 years. The thing is that the beginning of active addiction, the very beginning, the first days, they don't look anything like the last days. The first days are fun and exciting, and sometimes it grabs a hold of you and sometimes you're able to shake it loose, and it's not an everyday or an all the time thing. You have this life that you're living without your drug of choice. By the end, that's not true. By the end, at least for me, my life was inescapable, was completely connected to alcohol. There wasn't anything that I was doing that wasn't a part of it. I think sometimes when you hear the story of addiction and you hear the very end, you think that that's the way it always was. Or when you hear the very beginning, you think, well, that could never happen. This end state could never happen to me because that's not how it started. Right? It sounds like this really logical thing when we play it out beginning to end. Think about the times that I started drinking when I was 19 and the days that I quit drinking when I was 34. They are very different places. I am a very different person. 10 years into my recovery, I am an even more different person. The beginning of my recovery does not look like today. The beginning, what I held to be true at the beginning, the narrative that I had of myself at the beginning is very different than what it is today. And I work really hard to separate those things, to understand them for what they are. The beginning and the end are different. I'm still in the middle of my recovery, and so I'm still working, and I am so excited to see what's next for me.